What kind of gamer kid were you growing up? Did you throw house parties in Club Penguin? Did you learn spells in Wizard 101? Or did you goof around in Toontown? I vaguely say goof around because I don't really know what the hell you did in that game.
Ever wondered what it would be like to live life as a toon?
Or did you take gaming seriously and play the fantasy MMORPG known as RuneScape? I feel like playing RuneScape was a common precursor for a lot of gamers that ended up playing World of Warcraft for years on end. But playing World of Warcraft, by the way, if I'm like super stiff, I can't move in this or else something will tear or break. It's all staples and paper. I feel like World of Warcraft to most kids was a tough sell because it was $15 a month, which to a child in 2004 was like the cost of a house for an adult in 2024. Borderline impossible. But RuneScape was free. Or $5 a month if you wanted to become a member, which unlocked a whole new bunch of areas, new items to unlock, and skills to level up. I played RuneScape as a free member for years somehow, starting as a wee little lad at 8 years old, jumping into my first online gaming adventure. Back then, you didn't even need an email to play the game. That's actually a huge reason why I was able to play the game. Unlike some other games that would randomly need you to have an email, like Robot Rage, that one BattleBots game where you fight on a rooftop. For some reason, that game needed you to be on the grid, and I had no idea how to get my hands on email. I remember the first time I played RuneScape was at my friend Chad Blood's house in his dad's computer room. He had one of those computer wardrobes where you'd open the doors and a desk would fold out, revealing a tan gateway computer, the holy grail of PC gaming. We'd uncork some Yoo-Hoo chocolate milks, unwrap some stale s'mores Pop-Tarts, and jump right in. I played RuneScape for years, but only as a free user. I do have one experience as a member, but we'll get into that later. But nowadays, as a full-time YouTuber, yeah, I think we can become a member. For a month, let's not go crazy here. I know there's two versions of RuneScape now, the more modern RuneScape 3, and then there's old school RuneScape. But for this video, I wanted to investigate the rare opportunity to come back to a video game 20 years later that's still true to its form and very much actively played, the old school RuneScape experience. I wanted to see how this game holds up since playing it as a child, but I also kind of wanted to see how I've grown as a gamer. Like, how has my perception evolved? How has my gamer logic hopefully improved? And I really just wanted to see if old school RuneScape was actually fun, or was it just all nostalgia bait like most of the appeal of this video. So without further ado, let's go back in time to RuneScape. But before we do that, let's talk about a completely different game for about 60 seconds that I'm getting paid for. That's right, we're talking about War Thunder. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made. It's absurd the amount of vehicles. There are over 2,500 different planes, tanks, ships, and helicopters, ranging from the early 1900s to modern day F-22 Raptors. They got it all. Some of these vehicles are so old, they're older than the last time I played RuneScape. Sorry, that joke sucked, but I was just trying to tie it in. You can join the community of over 70 million players today, where you'll find a bunch of different game modes to try out, where you can fly, drive, or boat your way onto the battlefield and experience these cinematic battles firsthand. The graphics have been frequently updated, the combat situations are super cinematic, like you can have parts of your ship just like blow apart and fall off as you're fighting to your last breath. And you can play War Thunder today for free on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC, or Linux if you're one of those people. And if you use my link in the description, new and returning players that haven't played in 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack across all platforms that include multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive vehicle decorator, the Eagle of Valor, 100 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium account access. And it's only available for a limited time, so you gotta be quick. Thanks again to War Thunder for supporting my channel. Now let's go back into the world of Gilnor. First things first, we gotta create a new character. It's a little different than how it used to be. You do need an email, sorry kiddos. And now it's a seamless process to get started. Just kidding, it's extremely clunky and annoying. And this is how it went for me. I went to RuneScape's website, I chose what RuneScape to play, then made a new account, verified it, then downloaded the Jagex launcher, then had to figure out which game client I should download, which was the RuneLite client, downloaded that, started it up. Right here I got my first taste of nostalgia, that classic red loading bar before getting into my fantasy wonderland. Turns out I had an old character on this account named Zeep. Yes, that Zeep. Zeep. Zeep.
Was it really Zeep? God, that character's whole life was a lie. I clicked on make a new user in RuneLite, which then sent me back to the new account page again. This time I chose new character, which then sent me to the character management page, which I technically created a character here, but for some reason doesn't ask me for their name right here. You do that on an entirely different page. So you have to click manage, ignore cookies for the 10th damn time, select change character name, even though he doesn't even have one yet. Also, why is this button hiding second on the list? Shouldn't this be like front and center for new players? Whatever, this sent me to another page where I actually named my character, Plasmorp. Once I did that, I tried to sign him in on my RuneScape RuneLite client, which didn't work, of course.
What?
So you have to exit out of that completely, relaunch the Jagex launcher, which I had already closed out of, so I had to search for it in the Windows bar, which of course just showed me the installer instead of the actual application because Windows search is a piece of shit. So I had to manually go into my program files and find the launcher and open it up, select a Plasmorph, hit play now, and now I couldn't log in because I had a members world selected, so I had to go select a free world, hit play, and holy shit, we have a new character.
There we go. I actually get to create my character.
We're back! Hey Jagex, I'd fix that. Instantly, there was a huge sweeping sense of nostalgia when I started playing. Of course, the extremely low poly character and world design can just take you back 20 years, but things like the iconic music and sound design just transported me back to that time. It's also funny instantly seeing like the technical restrictions of like the looming black void 50 feet away from your character in the background. I also immediately felt the age of the game when I was creating my character, flipping through haircuts, and there was like a lag between each one because that old ancient Jagex code with its tick rate had to redraw 8 polygons on my head. But I was ready to embrace the old ways. And I excitedly created my character. I gave him a slick stash, some spikes, and colored them a natural lime green like I would have as a child. I also gave him some guns, and we were cocked and loaded. After being introduced to the world by the guide, I swung open the door and headed towards my first trainer, who taught me about fishing, cooking, cutting wood, and making fires.
Man, that girl probably just saw me make that fire. Wanna be my GF?
There's something about the cooked fish in this game that always looked so tasty to me. Just that ripe neon orange. Cooked at first try, by the way, not a big deal. And when I started cooking wood and I was thinking about Zeep, I did also remember that I had another character named Wood, both 7 vowels, and all I did on wood was cut wood and make fires in front of the bank in Varrock. Yes, I was that guy. I went to the next trainer and started cooking some bread, and while I was getting my feet wet again in RuneScape, I did start thinking what was gonna be the goal for this character and kind of this video in general.
I played this game like a wandering nomad as a kid. I barely had the attention span to actually complete a quest, and I had a strong distaste for reading since I had an assigned reading log in school, so I skipped most dialogue and missed most of the story. I would just kill tramps in Varrock over and over and craft shitty gear. I would see people with sick armor and just automatically assume that they've just been grinding it out, kill after kill, trading other players and crafting their own gear, becoming a living legend like Zezima, the #1 RuneScape player in the world, at least back then. By the way, to show you how innocent I was as a kid, me and Chad Blood one night spent an entire night trying to guess Zezima's password over and over.
Now try 000-001.
Okay, I'm not doing every number.
We didn't get it, but I swear we were this close.
Try big boobs with a Z.
That's the password we're in.
It's crazy that I spent years in this game, and I truly was never able to equip the Ruin Plate armor, which if you don't know, only takes 32 quest points, and you have to complete the Dragon Slayer quest. But as a kid, I remember looking at the quest log, even just the free section, and being like, oh, I could never do all of those. That would take tens of thousands of hours. That's only for pro players. Or my older brother. So that was gonna be my objective this time around. I wanted to be able to kill Elvarg, the level 83 dragon, and complete the Dragon Slayer quest and fully equipped Ruin armor, something I never got the satisfaction of doing as a child.
With my goal in mind, I continued through the tutorial and headed to the mining section, where I made my first bronze bar, which much like the cooked shrimp, also looked very tasty. With that chocolate bar, I crafted my first weapon, a lethal bronze dagger.
Look at that sharp ass bronze knife. It's paper thin. It's because it's that sharp. Not because it's actually paper.
Those rats didn't stand a chance. I walked into the pit, closed the gate behind me, cage match. In terms of coming back to combat, it was just like riding a bike again.
Dude, first strike, second strike. I haven't missed a single one. Okay, all right, there's one I missed.
There was a lot of things that I put together as an adult right away though that totally went over my head as a kid. Like attack styles being more effective against different enemy types. I really even knew how to like level up combat skills as a kid. I didn't realize that taking damage wasn't the way to raise defense. It was dealing damage with a defensive stance. The next part of the tutorial has also been updated, and it might sound kind of boring at first, but it was the bank and pull booth section. And the pull booth is a really cool concept that old school RuneScape does. Pull booths let players vote on potential updates added into old school RuneScape, so it updates the old game with new content, but confirms with their audience first, so it keeps that old school classic feeling intact. All updates need a voting approval rate of over 70% or above to go through, and only members of a certain level can vote to avoid botting. As a returning player that got to play the game for about 2 weeks to make this video, it was remarkably close to how I found it 20 years ago. And then we jogged over to the last part of the tutorial, which was the magic casting part. Something that terrified me as a kid, and not because I was a sweet Christian boy. No, my parents were cool and let me watch Harry Potter. It was more as soon as an ammo system isn't just like, these are the number of arrows that you have, and it becomes like an addition thing of these runes make this spell. My small brain just could not handle the basic addition. I mean, I could only do math until I was like, I don't know, 24 years old. But at this age, I really feel like I could figure it out. And so I hurled some magic at a chicken, and with that, the tutorial was complete,
And I was ready to enter the world. I love that there's like no cutscene or dramatic entrance into the world. It's just a hard cut to you in Lumbridge.
Look at that, man. This guy's got a cape.
The first new part of my old school RuneScape experience was this guy, Adventurer John. He gives you tasks that basically points new players in a good direction to start leveling up basic combat and gathering skills. And once you complete them, you get these pretty hefty rewards. I will say they're a little too generous. Like I remember back in the day having to craft my own full set of bronze armor, and I completely skipped that just by doing these tasks. As I took a look around the world that I once knew, immediately my instincts kicked in. I saw some ugly green goblins across the bridge of Lumbridge, and I started going and slaying them. I was pulled right back into the intense combat of RuneScape. Two opponents challenging each other in single combat, exchanging blows of blue zeros back and forth. The anticipation building of who will strike first blood, who will deal 1 damage first. I was on the edge of my seat. But after a few kills, just like my child self, I really didn't know what to do after that. So I just ran off in a direction and tried to familiar myself with the landscape again. And I will say right away, the world felt so much bigger than it did last time. Like, I don't mean like with stuff that they've added in. I mean like, I don't remember Varric being this much of a hike all the way up north. But I started heading west towards Draenor Village, and something became very apparent right away.
I forgot how quickly your run stamina drains in this game and how painfully slow it recovers. Man, does this part blow about RuneScape. And I'm not even saying to change it. Yeah, don't change it, but it does suck. But I do think it's interesting. Like, if I were playtesting RuneScape today as like a new game, my main feedback would be that your game constantly makes me feel bad. And not in like challenging Elden Ring way, in like a taxing way that feels unfair to like a real person's stamina levels. Also, trees have like an annoyingly big collision box, so you keep clicking on it instead of the ground, which feels a lot like in The Witcher when you're trying to search a chest, but you just keep turning the candles on and off.
Damn candles.
It's annoying, but that's because it's old, and that's classic, and that's what I was ready to embrace on this journey into old school RuneScape. So don't change it. Maybe change it. Maybe change
After building up a bit of a sweat, I refocused and just teleported back to Lumbridge, and I decided I should start my journey with the first quest from the cook in Lumbridge Castle.
It's a Duke's birthday today, and I should be making him a lovely big birthday cake. Would you help me, please?
No.
Here's another thing that I definitely should have known as a kid, but I missed it somehow. I never realized that quests give you heaps of experience towards a specific skill most of the time, which can boost your skills like crazy. A primary example of this, I have a couple friends that play RuneScape to this day, and my friend Spencer told me about this mysterious waterfall quest that could take your attack and strength levels from level 1 to level 30 with one quest. And it's not even that long of a quest. So I started picking up all the quests from the Duke, from farmers, and from the priest in the church who told me about his religion.
This is the god with more followers than any other, at least in this part of the world. Islam is the other one.
When I was in Lumbridge, I also passed a man with rainbow shoes, and it sparked a massive memory in my head about the last time I was really into RuneScape, which is they had added a security dungeon in the middle of Barbarian Village, where if you got through all the levels of the dungeon, you were rewarded with a cash prize and a choice of 2 boots, Warrior or Rainbow. The dungeon had you sprinting through high-level enemies to answer elementary-level security account questions. I loved those moments in RuneScape though, where you have to just sprint through high-level enemies and just pray that they all hit blue zeros. I gathered the supplies for the cook's quest. I gathered the supplies of the cook's quest and returned to Lumbridge Castle and completed my first quest that leveled up the crap out of my cooking skill. Well, not the crap of, it was like level 4 or something like that. In the midst of that, I had also leveled up my combat skills, so I went over to Adventurer John to get a reward from him, where he got me decked out, dripping like a Varric guard. I also went over to Count Check, the local vampire that checks your character's account security. Guess it must be some Transylvanian mythology I'm just not familiar with.
I love how off-the-wall RuneScape's lore is. It's just like anything magical or medieval is permitted. And forgive me if there's like lore that actually connects this all, but RuneScape has it all. And you got unicorns, goblins, skeletons, demons, vampires, Romeo and Juliet, King Arthur, Camelot.
On second thoughts, let's not go to Camelot. It is a silly place.
Pirates, barbarians, witches, whatever the hell this thing is. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's like actually aliens in the game. I genuinely don't know, but I would not be surprised if there is. And I love it. It's quirky, it's wacky, it's charming, and it's incredibly imaginative.
I then made my way over to Draenor Village for my next quest, but on the way there, I was ambushed by a highwayman and caught in the middle of my first life-threatening scrap.
Down to the wire. This is intense. I lived. Okay. And I get a cape out of it. That's what I'm talking about.
With my life narrowly intact, I made my way into Draenor and I stopped at a stand that was selling cheap costume items, one of which made me look like a druidic warrior, so I gladly scooped that up for the cost of some defense and tried on some other items, but unfortunately some items like affect your hairstyle.
Shaved down my spikes.
There also seemed to be a ruckus around town recently, so I asked a bank guard what the sitch was. He showed me the security camera footage, or magic vision footage, and it showed that there was a murderous old man on the loose that robbed the bank and killed somebody that had a freaking party hat, which to my perspective is more valuable than anything in that bank. Back in the day, this little number right here was worth millions of gold. When I was playing the game as a kid, the term mill was never even used as far as gold terms, especially when it comes to free players. Forbidden in our lands. Turns out today though, that the party hat is only worth like 30 gold, which kind of makes me sad. I know that the items have probably shifted around and there's something of like equal worth nowadays. Like I googled the third age cloak is really expensive, but I loved it for RuneScape that like the most legendary item was this like cheap paper crown. It fit the tone of RuneScape so well. Speaking of being a free player, at this time in my gameplay, I was still a free player, but that quickly changes because I started hitting roadblocks of the game asking me to become a member every 30 seconds it felt like. They pushed the member life on you pretty hard, and not being able to level up certain skills like agility that increases your run regen speed was just killing me. I then pursued the Duke's quest, which took me to the Wizard's Tower. These guys needed some help finding their Rune Essence mine, and this was the first quest that was going to take me to the main city of Varric. But on the way there, this farmer woman attacked me out of nowhere, and I barely survived by the hair of my chinny chin chin.
Come on. 1 health left. Come on. Yes! Ooh, man.
I successfully made it to Varric, and again, the nostalgia just came pouring in. I passed the circle of dark wizards that used to beat me up and take my lunch money. I saw a tramp that I used to kill all the time, who has a name now. I guess they're giving them names. I saw the bar where I got my first in-game GF, Stephanie, which she told me if I gave her all my gold, we would go upstairs in the bar and kiss. But when she went upstairs, she teleported to another world and I never saw her again. Yeah, that's classic Stephanie. By the way, if Stephanie's watching this, I don't even care about the 36 gold. It's just, I'm just a whisper away. I eventually hit the town square and saw the star of Varric hanging out there, Romeo, who I very much remember. I don't really remember the quest though, because I didn't read anything. So I grabbed his quest, which I'm not sure if he knows he gave me. And then I went to where I grew up, the back alleys of Varric, and started just murdering people in cold blood.
I do think it's funny that there's like no consequences for killing people in RuneScape. Like you can slaughter an entire bar in Varric and no one cares. You can kill all of the gnomes and they won't hold a grudge when you do a quest for them. And you can murder an entire city guard and no one's gonna arrest you. It's just the Wild West out there. I ended up going into the Bank of Varric, and it's crazy to go back there. Back in the day before the General Exchange, which is basically RuneScape's auction house, the bank was the place to do trade. It was like Wall Street in the 90s, man. Just people shouting all over each other, waving text, flashing text, colored text, flying all over the place, people making deals left and right, buying and selling. So many people would show up, it would flood outside of the bank into the side alleyway of the bank. I started small town with my sales career. I would go to the farm outside the desert and kill cows and get 21 cow hides, and then go to the Al-Kharid Desert Bank and sell it for 21K. I did that for a while and got a nice coin purse, but I wanted to get into the deep end with the sharks up in Varric. But I needed a product that was premium, something that I could ride with the big dogs with. And that was the Ruined Scimitar. So I would get 30K out of my bank, go to one world, buy a Ruined Simi for 30K, get it, and then hop worlds and flip it for 35 or maybe even 40K sometimes. Now my margins might look smaller than the 7K from the cow hides, but you gotta realize I'm eliminating all labor cost. And Ruined Simis had a very high demand at that time.
After completing my task for the wizards, I headed back to their castle and uncovered the location of the Rune Essence mine, which, just like as a child, immediately scared me again, and I didn't make a rune this entire gameplay playthrough. After that, I left the wizards and went and leveled up some basic skills and completed some smaller quests here and there. But one day, I reached an ordinary but very memorable place.
I remember this. This is where my world ended as a kid.
The barrier to the free player's world, which was just a basic fence, but I could just stare over that fence for days as a free player and just imagine what Narnia lied beyond. I mentioned earlier that I do have one experience as a member, and I think it's a good time to mention that now.
I had a friend, I think I was in 4th grade. His name was Austin Gums. He was a really chill guy, kind of a surfer dude, super laid back, and I found out that he played RuneScape as well. Not only that, but he was a member, and I had so many questions, and eventually he was like, yo, dude, just just like use my account and try it out for yourself. And so he just gave me his username and password on a piece of loose leaf. I'd never been more excited to run home and start playing a game in my life. I logged into his account and crossed through the forbidden fence and experienced an entire new world. So much color, so many items and gear I had never seen before. Dragon whips, magical staves, teal gloves, and detailed armor that I couldn't even tell you what ore it came from. I remember somebody was also having like a drop party as soon as I got there, where they're just dropping a ton of gold and a ton of different crazy items for free, sharing the wealth, and people were just scrambling to pick it up. At some point, I joined a cult, and I traveled through the deserts of Al-Kharid as a member and went to Emir's arena and watched duels firsthand between players. I experienced a world that I never dreamed of, but that dream wouldn't last forever, because eventually I would have to give Austin his account back to him. No! Oh my gosh, that was sick. I was running out of time. Eventually I would have to give Austin his account back. Unless I could deceive him. I could just lie. I had the power to change his password. So I did. This was one of the first major temptations of my life, and I was blinded by desire. I changed his password, and the next day he came to school and he was like, "Hey man, I couldn't sign into my account. Did you like change my password or something?" And just like a seal door, I told him, no. And for some reason he bought it. It was clearly me. But it was mine. The account was mine. My precious. Until about 10 days later when the account ran out, and genuinely I feel really bad because Austin probably had to restart a character and get a whole new account because of that. And I just want to say, Gums, I apologize. I'm sorry. That was very uncool to do.
As I gazed over the gate, the temptation to become a member once again was growing. But I went back to leveling up some stuff and went to the Lumbridge swamps, and as I finished slaying a giant rat, out of the shadows a frog leaped onto me and struck me down. I did the best I could to defend his blows, but he just kept pounding me down like a tidal wave, and eventually he struck a fatal blow. That day I met death. But literally, I met death. I got my items and I headed back to Draenor, but this time not to the village, but to the manor. Which as a kid, was another thing that I was terrified of. I viewed this place as like a mini wilderness. I thought I'd die if I just went near it. The trees attacked you for crying out loud. It was very scary. But as an adult, I mustered up my courage and headed into the dark forest towards the manor. I picked up a quest from Veronica, who needed help with her fiance who was turned into a chicken. Turns out this haunted house is pretty harmless and it just has a cool quest inside of it. These are my favorite kind of quests in Runescape. These puzzle quests that test your intelligence like you're in an escape room. And unfortunately, I didn't get to experience a lot of these kind of quests properly because towards the end of this quest, my buddy Spencer hops on again and tells me about Quest Helper, which Ruinlight has installed on it. And Quest Helper is fantastic, but it's at a cost. It tells you everything you'll need for a quest. It highlights every task to do, every item to pick up. It even creates like a line path of where to go on some quests. And it basically just turns RuneScape into a glorified checklist simulator. Now, I don't hate this, especially for RuneScape. RuneScape is about progressing your character and it's a slow burn and you have a billion things to do. But what kind of game is a puzzle where every clue is revealed? It's not a game. It destroys it. It destroys the way those quests are supposed to be experienced. And if your mind isn't a podcast or a video like watching Alt-Shift-X's Real Dune for the third time like me, it'll make it really hard to get into the dialogue and the storytelling of the quests. And that's one of the pitfalls that I ran into. I started reading quests less and less, and I became much more addicted to completing quests as effective and efficiently as I could, even looking up optimal quest guides to complete. I will say though, one thing in defense of Quest Helper is, as a kid, I would have never figured this shit out. Like, you poisoned the fish food? It's a perfect crime. After completing the quest and leaving the manor, I ended up meeting up with my friend Spencer, who was a member, and after seeing his armor with like hints of ruin in it and his cool construction hat, it pushed me over the edge and I had to become a member right then and there. I threw on some magic gear next and headed to Varric, where I was gonna start my first huge pain in the ass quest, the Shield of Arav, which makes you find another player that has the second half of a certificate during the quest. And I was clueless in how to do this. Like, it's an old ass game. Has everybody already completed this? Am I gonna be completely alone here? So what did I start doing? I started yelling help in the street until somebody stopped to help me. And somebody actually did. And they guided me to join a clan, which sounds weird, but they helped me get in touch with another player who was looking for the other half. This was one of the first extremely positive interactions that I've had with the RuneScape community. People are so freaking nice. I continued on leveling up my magic, and I also got another random event that gave me one of my favorite items in the game, the frog mask. In terms of looks, Now we're cooking. The next day I wanted to complete a quest that I never finished as a kid, the Prince Ali rescue mission. I remember this quest had like a lot of super complex steps to it. Like today it would still probably take me a couple of days to complete, but it would be worth it because I wouldn't have to be swindled out of 10 gold every time I try to enter the desert. Those freaking guards put a dent in my cowhides profit and I'll never forgive them for it. So I started the quest and about 15 minutes later I completed it. It was so easy, with quest helper, but yeah, I may have been a dumb kid. With those loose ends all tied up, I figured it was time to enter the members' world for the first time.
All right, this is a big moment.
I walked in and I was welcomed with open... Okay, that part was pretty underwhelming, but it was a fulfilling feeling to know that I had full access once again to the grand world of Runescape. That's gotten even larger since the last time I played it. I went to the military camp of Burthorpe, I crossed White Wolf Mountain, I passed the sea of swirly twirly gumdrops, and then I walked through the Lincoln Tunnel. And that's where I found my first pack of members. They looked awesome. They all had a cool green bag, and so I even just asked the crowd, where can I get one? And immediately somebody pointed me to a guy 50 feet away just giving them away for free. It was my first member's item, a foresting bag. I was one of them now. Now that I was a member, I could start this powerful, mysterious waterfall quest, which I was told could launch my offensive capabilities into the stratosphere. Once I began the quest, it led me to the maze of the gnome folk, which led me to a mysterious fountain where combat gear was forbidden. And that is where I had the challenge of running past very high level enemies naked and afraid. I made it past the first pack of enemies with no problem, but then I got to the next room and was immediately squashed by a level 84 moss giant.
Holy fuck!
And something happened that I feared, and I feel like a lot of new players are gonna fear, which is I was killed on the member side of the world, and I was spawned back in Lumbridge. How am I supposed to get to my body in 15 minutes? That's like 40 miles away. But then my friend Spencer hopped back on and told me about some life hacks in RuneScape that give you the ability to teleport around the world using things like jewelry. So he told me to go buy a thing called a games necklace and a ring of dueling, which if rubbed, could teleport you to specific locations. One of those being the Barbarian Outpost, which was like just north of the waterfall quest where I died. The only problem with the games necklace was that at the time my net worth was only 2,000 gold. So Spencer offered me 100,000 gold for free.
With 100K, you go okay?
Which made me soil my trousers, but I refused. I wanted an authentic experience. So I just said, just give me enough for the jewelry, which was about 5K. We traded and he gave me 10K because just like the rest of the RuneScape community, they're a little too generous. He also offered me to help distract the monsters in that cave so we could both go down there naked and afraid, and it worked. We sprinted through the cave together and got to the end of the waterfall quest where when I completed it, it took my strength and attack from level 10 to 31 and took my character level from level 13 to 27 with one quest.
That's crazy.
The next day I woke up and my character felt noticeably stronger, like I was Spider-Man discovering his super strength for the first time. So I decided to go slay a demon, part of the Demon Slayer quest. I was given the sword Silverlight, which was less cooler than I remember.
Sword looks like a wet piece of paper.
And headed towards the dark wizards who used to bully me and throw my backpack into a tree, which didn't happen to me in real life. And I started kicking ass. But I actually did get close to dying at one point because I was starting to run out of food and they summoned the demon Delwrath. But luckily after killing a level 20 wizard, I slayed the beast with a single strike. Yes. And then I recounted the incantation and that sent him straight back to hell. I'll see you in the Nightosphere, you sick freak. At some point around this time, I ended up logging off of my computer and I experienced something that I dreamed of as a kid when I got like my first iPod Touch, which was what if the games that I loved playing on PC could be accessible on your freaking phone one day? And RuneScape has done that. Let's turn on the light. Old school RuneScape has done that. I played it on my iPad in bed and it is truly just living in the future. So now I went all the way back to Adventure John and Lumbridge, and I had completed so many of the tasks because all my skills were leveled up like crazy from those quests. So he gave me a ton of gear, and next thing you know, I was dripping in mithril. You may have also caught that I had rainbow shoes as well. At some point off camera, I did the security dungeon, and I was starting to become the man that I dreamed of.
Man, one day.
With my newfound strength and all the gear that I had collected, I continued my adventures and completed a plethora of quests, just knocking them out. I gathered some beads for the wizards, I drove a stake through a vampire's heart, I got a cat, I snuck all the way through the Black Forest with my sabotage cabbage that was intended to ruin the Wicked Witch of the West's invincibility potion, but right when I got to the vent, instead of using it, I clicked it,
Hack it, put the cap. No way, I just fucking ate the cabbage! My cabbages!
Luckily, there was a cabbage farm close by, but as I was going there, I started getting into a fight with a freaking Black Knight, and I looked down for literally 5 seconds, and this dude just started dunking on me and killed me.
What did he hit me?
So I had to walk all the way back from Lumbridge to Ice Mountain, and this time it did go off without a hitch. Nothing but netted the cabbage into the cauldron, and I saved the world. You're welcome, Galenor. After this quest, I looked at my quest log, and I realized I only had a couple of free quests left to complete. This is something I thought as a kid would be impossible, and now I'm doing it as an adult, casually, in like 4 days. But I didn't want to get to the Dragon Slayer quest just yet, so I started completing some members quests. So I helped some druids reclaim some rocks? I don't know. Doing this got me access to potion making and herb lore, which I don't know any of, and I didn't use the skill at all the rest of my game. I'm sure it's useful. Then I helped some pirates on an island with some hot goss that they have between them, and then found out one of them is a pirate wizard, and I had to kill him. But I made the amateur move of having the upper hand in the fight, but I started binging garlic that barely healed me, and he just started blasting my ass.
Get him! Kill him, you
off, man.
Ah, you suck.
It was at this point that I also realized that the armor's defenses worked like rock, paper, scissors, where wearing all mithril armor was actually lowering my defense against magic, but wearing leather increases it. So I dressed up like a homeless guy and fought him again and smashed his dick in this time.
Yes. Suck it. Suck it, Ithoe.
And then something out of the ordinary happened. A stranger approached me. And this is true, by the way. This is a random guy that came up to me, and he said he wanted to hook me up with better gear out of nowhere. And I was like, okay. I'm a YouTuber that has had his account hacked before, so I am very cautious about anybody offering me anything for free ever. And he kept schmoozing me and calling me like legend and stuff, so I was like, what do you want? He told me to add him, and when I did, he teleported away. And for a second, I was like, oh my God, is this a Stephanie situation again? Like, can he just cast a spell to any of his friends' bank accounts and take all of their gold and leave forever? But about 10 minutes later, he messaged me again and told me to meet at the Grand Exchange. And holy hell, he hooked me up. He decked me out with full adamant gear that I wasn't able to equip at that time. And he gave me jewelry that boosted my stats. And he also finished off my current mithril set. All I could muster was, why me? And he just said, I love helping people out. My faith in humanity was restored. And then he gave me $100,000, which made me empty my bowels again. And I almost refused. However, instead of my friend Spencer giving me $100,000, I actually decided to accept it from the stranger because I feel like this actually is authentic to the RuneScape experience. This happens to me a couple of times out of nowhere from people I don't know. That's just what the community is like. And I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but you'll probably run across people that do want to help you out. I'm sure there's bad apples out there that are trying to Stephanie you, but I didn't run across any. I did just like put myself back in my shoes as a kid, and like to think if somebody did offer this stuff to me, I would have shit a brick. Do you know how many cow hides I would have to sell to make 100 grand? So I accepted the deal. With all this wealth, I started blazing through quests. I became a temple knight, I bought a house, I went to a museum, I did my first treasure hunt, and got a knife. I saved a priest that unlocked the area of Mortania, which basically looks like Halloween Town in RuneScape. I killed something that looks like E.T., and this is also where I figured out what safe spotting and flinching is. Basically, it's a combat mechanic that players have found that you can exploit to basically take no damage, even fighting like really high level enemies. At this point, I also realized that you can fight things that really out level you. It's not like World of Warcraft where you'll just start like missing. Like, it'll take some time, but if you have the right gear and the right amount of food, you can kill pretty much anything. It'll just take a lot of time. With knowing that, I ended up going back to the desert and attempted the tourist trap quest, which levels up your agility like crazy, and finally I would get a little bit more regen speed when it comes to running. I am glad that I had Quest Helper for quests like this where it's super anal, and if you mess up one little thing, it'll make you restart most of the quest. And I continued my path of questing and leveling up until one day I felt like I was ready to complete the Dragon Slayer quest. So I went to the Champions Guild and I accepted the quest. I needed to find these pieces of a map to get to the island of Crandor, a once populated island that was leveled by the evil dragon Elvarg. Well, not evil, I mean, maybe he was just trying to have a meal, but killed 300 people in the process. So I climbed to the top of Ice Mountain where I met an oracle who told me that the first piece of the map was buried underneath Ice Mountain itself, so I went and grabbed that. Then I went and sought out a goblin named Wormbrain, and he was holding onto the second map piece like Gollum's Precious, and he wanted $10,000 for it, which fortunately from Benno's I had. I paid Wormbrain the 10 grand, he gave me the map piece, and for the final map piece I would need to complete Melzar's Maze. It was basically a leveled dungeon where I had to slay a rat, I had to slay a ghost, a skeleton, a zombie, all the classics, before having to fight Malzar himself, which was a close fight, a little too close, to where we ended up killing each other as I casted my last spell at him and he kicked me in the balls. So I died, which was annoying because I still had to get to the lesser demon that was behind him, so I had to go through the entire maze again, kill him again, and then finally killed the lesser demon, which I killed by safe spotting because he couldn't squeeze through this one little alleyway. Then I went back to where it all began, Lumbridge, and met with the Duke, who gave me an anti-dragonfire shield for free, and all I had to do now was find a captain crazy enough to sail me to Crandor, which was pretty easy. It's the guy that sold me rope. Then I bought my own ship for $2 grand. Jeez, I paid 5 times this for the piece of a fucking map from a goblin. Absolutely swindled. With the boat, I also got my own slick cabin boy named Jenkins. As soon as I patched up the boat, we put the map pieces together and set sail to the island. But as we set sail, we were attacked by a low-res cutscene. Elvar destroyed my boat, killed Jenkins, and caused us to crash land onto Crandor. I dusted myself and climbed the mound of ash that was Crandor, and jumped into a hole that ended up leading me into a cavern filled with skeletons, demons, and Elvarg himself. I laid eyes on the beast, but only for a moment. I couldn't just jump in the ring with her right away. I had to plan. So I found a little safe spot behind a wall and started doing some research. Turns out I was heavily underleveled, I didn't bring the proper gear, and I had not nearly enough food. My health was 30, and Elvarg on average hits for like 15. If I didn't have the anti-dragon shield, Elvarg could hit me for 69 damage just off of his fire breath. And at this moment, it seemed like my fate was sealed, but this rush of courage, this adrenaline came over me, and I just decided to say, screw it, nobody lives forever, and I ran straight into the dragon's lair, jumped into the ring with her, and I knew I didn't stand a chance. Some people might call it bravery. I call it cheesing. I cheesed this fight so hard. The reason why I got courageous is because I realized that you can safe spot this dragon, and I ran into the corner and started a very long fight with Elvarg, where I did 1 damage to her repeatedly until she died. But it was actually still a pretty riveting fight, not for any heroic reason, for just a lot of noob mistakes that I made.
It's gonna be the most boring fight to ever see. Oh my gosh, stop. Why?
And RuneScape trying to like moonwalk my character around when I'm just trying to click 1 square away.
No! Go to your fucking safe spot, you quack! What the fuck? I call him a quack?
I also had a rat that was trying to friggin' sabotage this whole thing by seat checking me, but it was my spot, so I killed it.
This fucking rat's gonna be the end of me. There you go. Suck it, rat.
After the longest fight I've had in RuneScape, a full 10 minutes, I slayed the beast with a solid 3 damage.
Oh, she's got 1. Yes! Yes! That's what I'm talking about. You saw it here. Rip off his head. David and Goliath, baby.
I proved my worth as a warrior, worthy, oh my gosh, that's a tongue twister. Worthy of wearing, worthy of wearing rune plate armor. I did the thing. The XP from that quest is crazy.
Woo! My combat level is now 45.
And got me 3 levels away from being able to actually equip the rune armor. Only one problem, rune plate armor from the seller was 85,000 gold for just a chest piece. That was a tough pill to swallow, but I was ready to start raising the money. But first, some celebration was in order. As I was raising my defense, killing some guards, satisfying my bloodlust, a man with a dragon face came up to me and started mocking me. I get it, I don't look like the guy who just slayed Elvarg, you know, but I let him know.
Oh, what an asshole. Or you have to just completed Dragon Slayer. How's that?
That changed his demeanor, and he even invited me to go bar hopping with his friends. We had a grand old time drinking, telling stories of love and war, told him about Stephanie. I met his beautiful, constipated friend, and as fun as it was, eventually I had to go meet with another friend of mine, someone who could help me get my hands on some rune plate armor. Or an entire set. And here's the crazy part. When Benno's was giving me all of my rune armor for free, someone overheard our conversation and also wanted to help me out and just casually gave me $750,000.
Oh my god.
And a bunch of random ass expensive gear. I was drunk, happy, and rich. It was a perfect end to the night. And the next morning, I quickly leveled up my defense to level 40, allowing myself to finally be able to wear the rune plate armor.
The chest piece. Fully ruined out. Did it all myself.
completing my adventure of coming back to one of the most foundational games in my life. The only thing left to do was to head to the wilderness north of me, like Frodo heading to the Undying Lands. I was looking for an honorable death, to fight another player in single combat, to let my body be laid rest. So I went deep, deep into the wilderness. I even got to the end of it and I touched it like it was like the end of a pool. But I couldn't friggin' find anybody, so I started researching like PvP hotspots on RuneScape, and as I was looking this up, somebody teleported in and killed me. And that's where I met a somewhat underwhelming, noble end.
Oh. What? Oh man, I didn't even see it coming. That's great. Well, still got my party hat.
The craziest part of my whole gameplay and this whole video's playthrough is that it barely scratches the surface of what's left to explore in the entire RuneScape world. There's like an infinite amount of quests I gotta go on still, there's a gear that I could never even imagine, and there's thousands of enemies and people I haven't interacted with. There's plenty of places that I didn't go that were available to me, so like right at the last minute, I just started like running around the entire map trying to get some footage for this stuff, and also turning on an HD RuneScape mod for a second, which is kind of sick. I also ran out of stamina 100 times during this time, so I hope you guys appreciate this footage. I wanted to give you guys a better preview of what was left to experience.
RuneScape will forever be embedded into my DNA as a gamer, and I hope you enjoyed my trip down memory lane. And honestly, the game still kind of rules. I could definitely see myself continuing to play this. I just gotta play Dragon's Dogma 2 first, which hopefully isn't dog ass. Please God, don't let it be. But thanks for watching, and thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring this video.
You can download it today on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox.
And remember, if you use my link in the description, you get a free bonus pack for new players and players returning after 6 months. That includes a bunch of different premium vehicles, premium account access for 7 days, and 100 silver lions. Thanks for supporting my channel, guys. And thank you to all my patrons that support me. Seriously, you guys are the best. I'm forever grateful for your support. And along with the game dev stuff this year, I'm gonna bring some changes to the Patreon. So expect some announcements coming up there and some content as well. Anyway, thanks guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Fucking Ralphie. I'm just gonna put everything on. This is so fucking hard. Now, the main piece. Oh, look. What's that? What's that? What's wrong? Oh, did I go inside out?
It's okay.
Hang on, it's supposed to go out like this?
Got it. Yep, just like that. It's okay.
Great. That's off too. Awesome. Everything's going to plan so far. Ah, my shoulder! Yeah, he punctured it. It's smelling good. He put my amulet of strength on.
You've been blessed.
Can you beer me? More. 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 There we go.
Good?
I think that looks perfect.
I think those are gonna have to hang or something. Like, I don't know what you want me to do.
Those, don't worry about those.